Welcome, welcome, welcome to yet another episode of Bloodhouse, the show where we talk about art house horror. I'm Joshua Conkle.
And I'm your co-host, Drusilla Adeline. How are you doing today, Josh?
Oh, I'm fine. I've been busy. I've been watching a lot. Shout out to my internet friend, Greg, who I think is also a listener. You can let us know if you are, Greg. He did something really nice, and he sent me 12 Ingmar Bergman Blu-rays because he bought the box set, so he needed to get rid of his individual Criterion editions.
I'm so jealous.
I've never seen an Ingmar Bergman movie. So
what's wrong with you?
A lot is wrong with me. So I've been going through that. I watched Seventh Seal, which I thought was so beautiful and incredible. It's like if the tarot deck were a movie.
Yeah.
Just so cool.
It's as beautiful as it is terrifying, as it is melancholy, as it is funny. Like,
I absolutely loved it. And I don't know, maybe this will be a segment on the show. We can call it
Bergman Update.
Yeah, Bergman Update. Yeah, so I've only watched that one so far. And yeah, how about you?
If you get the chance, I highly recommend doing his religious trilogy and specifically doing Through a Glass Darkly.
I think that's in the stack, but if it's not, then I will rent it.
It's on the Criterion channel. Definitely, for me, Through a Glass Darkly is my favorite. Mm-hmm. And it's a gothic, isolated tale of female paranoia and religion.
Yeah, ooh.
So I think you'll like it.
I think I will too. I mean, I started with, I didn't know where to start. So I found a list that was like ranking all of Ingmar Bergman's movies in order. And I don't have all of them because there are 25 of them. I have, a dozen of them. Mm-hmm. And it had Seventh Seal at number 1. So I just started there. I didn't know who else to trust. I should have texted you.
That's where to start. That's where I started.
Yeah.
And I became obsessed. Yeah, I've had the opposite week of watching Bergman movies. I've been watching a bunch of John Waters and Frank Tashlin.
Oh, yay!
So it's been like bright colors and like bodacious babes for me over here. I finally watched The Girl Can't Help It for the first time with Jane Mansfield.
I love that movie. Love it.
I adore that movie. What took me so long? I watched it in bed, like with like weighted blankets up to my neck, and it was just pure heaven. I like woke up, immediately put that on, and it was like the single best way to start a day I've had in like years.
Weirdly, John Waters is my first love. I don't know if we've really talked much about him on the show yet. But weirdly, he was my introduction to art house movies because I came from like a cult and trash film and exploitation film background, and getting really into John Waters as a teenager. Of course, he loves art movies. He loves Fellini. He loves all this shit. And so it was like reading interviews with him that introduced me into these movies.
It's so interesting because he is almost the opposite for me. John Waters, I grew up watching Bergman and Buñuel and, Fellini and stuff. And then he was my kind of prism in like late high school, early college of getting into like Herschel Gordon Lewis and really trashy, like William Castle and stuff like that.
Well, there's
really
a
trashy
point,
exploitation movies.
Yeah, there's a point at which these sort of like overlap, right? And John Waters is a great introduction to that point. I mean, Paul Verhoeven is in that space too. A lot of the Giallo movies, we've talked about it a lot. There's like a point where like the sleazy and the art house kind of meet. It's
the most beautiful stuff. John also has great stories about how in the 60s, he and Divine would drive up to New York City to go see the latest Ingmar Bergman movie.
Yeah.
Because Divine had no interest, but John wanted to see every single one because he loved Bergman. And they would drop acid beforehand. And go into and trip out in Bergman movies. That stopped when they saw Hour of the Wolf. Because Hour of the Wolf is Bergman's like one horror movie.
Uh-huh.
We'll get to it on the pod.
I'm sure.
And there's a scene in which a face is removed. Which is not the best special effect in the world, but in the late 60s, and you're on acid, Divine freaked out and ran out of the theater, and John just stayed there cackling.
You know what? And then the late 90s, my best friend Alice and I took acid and went to the movies, except we went to go see the Drew Barrymore romantic comedy Home Fries, which is now like a forgotten movie.
With Luke Wilson?
Yes.
Oh my
Drew
God.
Barrymore and Luke Wilson. And we were sitting in the theater and the acid was starting to kick in. And for some reason, and I have never watched this movie since, so I can't tell you why, but the movie opens with a sky full of helicopters at night. And Allison and I were like, this is too intense. Oh no, we can't deal with this. And so we left the theater and then we're stuck in my mom's Subaru for like hours because I was on acid, so I couldn't drive. And so we just like hung out and like we tailgated basically my mom's Subaru in the parking lot of this movie theater on acid because Home Fries starring Drew Barrymore was too intense to finish.
Oh my God. I love that so much.
Can I go on one of my tangents really quickly? Speaking of this, speaking of trash versus art house. So this weekend, so this is a little bit how the sausage is made, listeners, because we record like a couple of weeks in advance. So this weekend, as of this recording, the film X came out, which is, of course, a new horror movie by Ti West through A24. So anytime an A24 movie comes out, there are all sorts of ding-dongs who get on the internet and kind of crack jokes about art house movies, or they'll do these tweets about elevated horror. Now, in episode 1 of this show, we talked about how divisive the term elevated horror is and how we wouldn't use it, and that still stands. But I have to get this off my chest because I see it like every other day. Somebody on horror Twitter will tweet this tweet about the term elevated horror and how much they hate it. And they do it for the likes and the engagement. Because here's the thing. Actually, no one really uses that term. Like it's been a couple of years since anyone used it seriously. And mostly it wasn't people in the horror fandom. It was like business people and marketers and stuff like that. So it's starting to feel to me a little bit like horror Twitter's version of a moral panic, like panicking over something that actually doesn't exist. I just want to say to those people, you can relax. Like the monster is dead. You could stop clout tweeting about elevated horror. No one is using that word. It's been literally years. And it's so clear that you're just doing it for the engagement. And I get that, but it's like, relax. The monster is dead and you're the final girl. You killed the term elevated horror. It's chill.
I'm so fascinated by people using that in terms of the Ti West movie X, because this is the sleaziest slasher
and by
movie
design, right?
That like A24's come close to. This is not It Comes at Night, where they marketed it as a horror film and it's really not a horror film.
Yeah.
This is as sleazy as you think it is. So
but that's the other half of this is people tweeting like more like this A24 as if to suggest like this is because it's less, arty farty. It's like better than the other things. I just feel like there's a huge streak of anti-intellectualism in the horror fandom. And I sort of, on one hand, get where it's coming from because we all are on the defensive from loving this genre and having to defend it so much. But I get the sense that there are these people who think it's like punk rock or baller or whatever to love bad movies but not artful. You know what I mean? Like it's like somehow punk rock to love Ghoulies 3 but then be like, dude, The Lighthouse is the worst fucking movie I've ever seen in my life. And I just want to say, like, there is nothing less punk rock than loving Marvel movies and hating indie movies.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
that's your corporate get a job version of watching movies these days, is like simping for DC and Marvel and Disney.
Yeah, and I'll also say, like, anti-intellectualism is one of the most corrosive, toxic American traditions, and it's also one of the core values of the conservative right. And so, to those people, I just want to say, congrats. You're now an evangelical Christian. No, I'm just joking. I just feel like it's obnoxious and it has the whiff of like a horror version of a moral panic. Like it's not a thing that exists. There's no need to wring your hands about it. No one's even using the term anymore. And if you are somebody who loves, big commercial movies and, not small independent films, like that's actually not as cool as you might think it is.
Listeners, what we are telling you to do is to take all of your Blu-rays of Marvel superhero movies, throw them in the garbage, and go out and buy box sets of Herschel Gordon Lewis and Ingmar Bergman at the same time.
Listen, I'm not telling people to do that, but
I'm
I
explicitly telling people to do that. Your life will be better and more interesting.
I
You'll have
think
more personality as a human being.
I think it's great to have a well-balanced diet of media, meaning commercial movies, art movies, trashy movies, fancy pantsy foreign films. You should like all of it, and you should consume all of it. And that's all I have to say about that. I'm sorry. I know we try not to be snobby on this show, but it's been driving me crazy. It's like every single time someone gets on there and does this, and it's like, who is this for? Like, who's even using this term anymore? It's been literally years.
It's the internet. It's for clout and getting people angry and riled up. Which
That's exactly it.
you're riled up, so
I am riled up. It's always I have to stop. It's so infuriating.
they're
It's always
shaking
the
your
dumbest.
jimmies. They're
It's always the dumbest person I know. It's always the dumbest motherfucker in the room who's like, I don't like art movies. I like Marvel movies, and it's like they think that they're like Gigi Allen for this opinion or something. It's so fucking stupid.
no, you're Ronald Reagan for that opinion.
Yes,
Go to hell.
100. Anyway, anything
Speaking
else?
of art movies and trashy movies, what do we
Yes.
have on the docket today, Josh?
Oh boy, this will be an interesting one. From 1976, directed by Roman Polanski, starring Roman Polanski. It is The Tenant.
Paris. On a quiet street, in an old building, a dead woman's vacant apartment is waiting. Waiting for the tenant. Roman Polanski is the tenant.
Oh my God. I am so excited. Can I give a little peek behind the curtain backstory for this?
Yes, go off.
Okay, so a couple weeks ago, as you all know, we talked about a little Takashi Miike movie called Audition. And I may or may not have grumbled about that a little bit. Because I have a pretty low tolerance for certain degrees of torture porn. And so I jokingly, I promise, entirely jokingly swore revenge on I'll get you, Josh. I'll find a movie for us to talk about that will make you feel the way I felt about Audition. And again, entirely jokingly. And then after that episode, immediately after, we were texting being like, what should we schedule next? And I was like, ooh, I really want to talk about The Tenant. And Josh's immediate response was, I hate that movie. So welcome to the revenge.
Bum, ba, bum. I have been dreading watching this movie all week, putting it off all week, and I finally had to bite the bullet last night.
And from the opposite perspective, it rained in Glendale last night.
Mm-hmm.
I had a blanket. I had a nice iced tea. I had a lovely little meal. And I had The Tenant. And it was like a warm blanket. This is a comfort movie for me. Mm-hmm. And with a little bit of rain outside, oh, it was bliss. I was so at home.
Look, I'm perfectly willing to watch this movie for the podcast. I mean, hate is a strong word. The truth is that I feel kind of nothing towards this movie.
That's like worse.
It's a 2-star movie, not a 1-star movie or a no-star movie for me. I guess really quickly, we'll just give a loose summary of what this movie is about. Roman Polanski plays a man named Tchaikovsky who somehow learns about an apartment in Paris. Apartments at this time, and I believe still to this day, are very hard to come by in Paris. And the reason that the apartment might be opening up is because the former tenant, a woman named Simone, has thrown herself out of a window and is now in the hospital. So he goes to look at the apartment, and he's guided by the most I don't give a fuck concierge in the world, played by Shelley Winters, who's amazing in this movie. And he just kind of has to wait to see what's going to happen with this woman who is in the hospital, who passes away, but not before he goes to visit her and meets a woman named Stella. Is that right?
It is Stella, played by Isabelle Adjani of Possession fame.
Looking as glamorous as she ever did. And they start a relationship after meeting on Simone's hospital bed. So Simone passes away. Trelkovsky moves into the apartment, and slowly but surely, in the style of Roman Polanski's apartment movies, he begins to feel like there's something malevolent about the building and his neighbors, and he starts to suspect that they are somehow trying to turn him into the former tenant Simone who killed herself, or he is somehow being possessed by her spirit. It's not 100% clear on what's happening, but it's like a story of paranoia and growing alienation. And anything to amend or add, Drusilla?
I mean, I think for myself, one of the most important and interesting aspects of the plot is that he is assumed by everyone around him to be Simone Schul, despite the fact that he is Roman Polanski. But as the course of the plot goes on, it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in a very interesting way.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, this is off the back of Repulsion and Rosemary's Baby. The three create his quote-unquote apartment trilogy, which were all made like disparately from one another. And it was never planned. It was just he fell into this trapping of like, here's his Ira Levin novel. And then years later, here's his Roland Topor novel. Oh, I guess they have similar themes. You're kind of good at that. And The Tenant was supposed to be made by Jack Clayton, who directed The Innocents, like 10 years before. Edward Albee of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf fame had written the script.
Yeah, I would like to read/see that version because I mean, you're not gonna be a better writer than Edward Albee. So there's that. And Roman Polanski co-wrote this script, and it certainly is not as good as an Edward Albee script. I will say that.
I mean, fair. Edward Albee has great dialogue. However, you absolutely could not have gotten away with some of the ideas, images, and themes in this movie in the 50s as you could have in 1976.
For sure. I don't really know where to start with this movie, Drusilla. So why don't you talk about your kind of background in it, why you love it, that sort of stuff.
Okay. A couple things to discuss on The Tenant because it is Polanski, so there's going to be some sticky subjects to.
Yeah, do we have to talk about Polanski and his legacy?
Have to. This movie was made in 76.
Yes.
This is the last movie made before that happened.
Yeah, so
it was released when that happened, and it stars the man.
Yeah. Dear listener, trigger warning in case you don't know. In 1977, Roman Polanski sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl at Jack Nicholson's infamous party house in Los Angeles. He did it repeatedly under sort of the most toxic, horrifying circumstances. And rather than face, prison time, he fled the country and has been living abroad ever since. So for longer than I've been alive, which is 41 years, Roman Polanski has been living free in Europe and only traveling to countries which cannot expedite him to the United States for punishment.
Yeah. Insane, too, considering that, like, the judge in 77 was going to give him, like, the weakest sentence possible. They'd sentence him to, like, a month of, like, minimum security prison. Yeah. And then he would have been out in time. And the only reason he fled the country was because the financing on his Pirates movie with Walter Matthau, which is a piece of shit, would have fallen through.
He's just the worst kind of toxic, just horrible man. I mean, I don't know. He did survive the Holocaust as a boy. His wife, the star Sharon Tate, was murdered at 8 months by the Manson family. That doesn't excuse him being a repeat rapist, but it's just a very complicated story.
It's a very complicated story, and The Tenant is a difficult one to talk about because it's one of two feature films that he made in which he is the lead actor, the other being The Fearless Vampire Killers, in which he met Sharon Tate.
Right.
But this one, being made in 76, was released in America right before the scandal.
Yeah.
the events happened. And on top of that, it's compounded by the fact that the tagline for this movie is the most poorly aged tagline in human history, which Paramount decided to market the Tenant with. No one does it to you like Roman Polanski.
Not good. Yeah, I just watched the trailer before we started recording, and I was like, oof.
Yeah.
We always do a trailer drop, and I'm like, ooh, that's a rough run. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not... It did not age well.
No.
It did not age well.
It's like that early 80s diet candy that was called AIDS. And so it was like, you can go on YouTube and watch
I didn't know about that.
It's awful. It's spelled AYDS, but it's from like 1980, 81. And there's all these commercials you can go watch on YouTube. They're like, I lose weight fast with AIDS. And it's just horrifying. So horrifying. It has that ring to it.
Oh my God.
Not good.
I feel so evil laughing at that.
I know.
No.
We don't mean to trivialize the,
that's just so unfortunate.
It's just very shocking.
God.
Is all.
Yeah, that's deeply shocking. Anyway, so that is some of the like baggage around the Tenant, and I think part of the reason why the Tenant is not as fondly looked upon as, say, Rosemary's Baby or Repulsion, or the other Polanski movies made at the same time, Chinatown, Macbeth, which are like legendary. So I saw this movie in high school. This was among a number of movies that I saw in high school, along with Brian De Palma's Dress to Kill and a few others that I would call egg crackers.
What do you mean by that?
By that, I mean films that are not advertised as being trans-related films, that are absolutely trans-related films, that to an unsuspecting, very closeted teenager get at cracking the egg and make you realize, hey, wait a minute. And this was absolutely one of them. I had no clue what the Tenant was about, other than like, it's like Rosemary's Baby and Repulsion. Person goes insane in an apartment building. I like those two movies. Let's track this one down. It was always hard to find when I was in high school. I had to like buy a crazy expensive used DVD at like a used DVD store. I think it was on YouTube for a little while. It was very out of print. And the first time I saw it, I had no clue about the plot. And I was just hypnotized by it. It has a very Kafka-esque tone.
Yep.
It is a very drab kind of brown color palette. Actually, the cinematographer for this movie is Sven Nykvist, who is Ingmar Bergman's go-to cinematographer.
Oh,
shot
interesting.
Cries and Whispers and Seventh Seal and Wild Strawberries and all that stuff. Who would later go on to shoot films for other notorious piece of shit 70s filmmaker, Woody Allen.
God, what a legacy.
Right? Yeah, a lot of Bergman tie-ins today. So the kind of world and atmosphere of this is a very like hauntingly evil, surreal kind of tone, which is stuff that I was very, very, very into when I was in high school. I was reading a lot of Kafka. I was watching Orson Welles' adaptation of The Trial a lot. I was reading a lot of William S. Burroughs. I was watching a lot of Buñuel. And so this idea of 30s and 70s European surrealism with like a darkly comic bent, a heaping dose of paranoia, and a very kind of underlying wealth of like tension and unease was like right up my alley at the time. And still very much is. I mean, all of those things were very foundational texts for me. So this movie just hit me like perfect at the time that I saw it at. And with every subsequent viewing, the more that I get into the mystery of the film, because it's not as straightforward as Rosemary's Baby, and Rosemary's Baby is not a very straightforward movie.
No.
This is definitely the most abstract of the three films. There's a lot of little mysteries that are set up in The Tenant that are not resolved.
No.
There is
to say the least.
Yeah, there's a tooth found in a wall. that is not resolved. There is allusions to Egyptian mythology and religion that is only thematically resolved.
Yes, the former tenant Simone, for context, was an Egyptologist.
Yes. There's a lot of little kind of quirks and things like that upon your first viewing are just kind of there to like set tone, and strange things happen. But the more I've watched the film and the more that I've, come into my own identity and come out, so many more of those themes resonate more with me. But kind of like I said at the top, it's not a movie that scares me. It's a movie that I find comforting. I was listening to a podcast the other week, which is Films to Be Buried With, hosted by Brett Goldstein of Ted Lasso fame. It's a great podcast. I don't mean to direct you away from this podcast to another one, but it's very good. He was having Mark Frost on, the co-creator of Twin Peaks and one of the greatest writers of his generation. And on the podcast, he was asked what the scariest film he's ever seen is, and his answer was The Tenant. And I was shocked by that. The idea that not only is The Tenant for anyone that like horrifying of a movie, that like deeply, deeply unsettling, but also that the man who co-created Twin Peaks thinks that The Tenant is the most terrifying, upsetting thing, kind of fits very well into my understanding of Twin Peaks. What's your background with The Tenant, Josh? I know you have at least one deep association with the other films in this series.
I do. So the way that you describe this as a comfort movie is how I feel about Rosemary's Baby, which is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I love it. It's something I rewatch all the time for a spot of comfort. I think it's just about a perfect movie. And so I saw this movie through that. I saw it in my 20s, which, because of our age difference, might have really been around the same time you did.
Probably.
Because it was a hard movie to find at that time. But I found it. And I would argue with you, and as loath as I am to disagree with you or Mr. Mark Frost, I would argue that this movie is less popular than those other movies because it's not as good. To me, this movie is like Polanski going like, oh, I did a really great job with all these themes in Rosemary's Baby. What if I did them again, but worse? And instead of getting a real actor, what if I started it myself? Like, nothing about this movie quite works for me. There are things I like about this movie a lot, but just to go through a hit list of the things that I don't like, I don't care about that cinematographer's legacy. I think it's sort of a miracle to make Paris seem this drab and uninteresting. I think the story is thin and inscrutable, which is hard to do at the same time. I think his performance is weak. I think he gives the character no interiority. God, I could just go on and on and on. I just don't think really anything about this quite works. There are things I like about it. Of course, I love Isabelle Adjani. I love Shelley Winters. I love the tone in a lot of places. But I just don't think the movie works flat out. And I read some reviews. I know that Roger Ebert, who, Roger Ebert's wasn't the biggest horror fan generally and was often unkind to the genre, but he called it an embarrassment. I just don't like it. Sorry. I just don't think anything about it really works.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair. I think so far, granted, not many people have seen The Tenant. And so I've had very few discussions with people who have seen The Tenant. However, almost all of them have been very positive, very like, holy shit, no one knows about this movie. It's so weird. It's so good. It's so fun.
Well, yes, but that's because it's sort of been reappraised. Like the way that I feel about The Tenant is how most people felt about The Tenant
in 1976. Yeah.
In 1976, yes. Now the people who know about it are generally people who like it. So I think I'm now in the minority when my opinion used to be the norm. And I will say too, like, he even does shots directly from his other two apartment movies, like the peephole shot. There's a shot after he jumps when people are gathering around him on the street. These are actually direct shots from his other movies, and he somehow does them worse. And I'm like, this is your third time getting this shot. How is it worse than it was 10 years ago? Like, it's so frustrating.
I will say to 2 points that you mentioned. One, I love the world of this movie and the way that it looks. I think part of that is something we haven't mentioned is when they shot this movie, they shot it twice. They shot it in English and they shot it in French at the same time. Every time they would do a setup, the entire cast is a mix of old Hollywood American actors like Melvin Douglas and Shelley Winters and Joe Van Fleet, and then Polanski, the single like Polish guy, and then you have all these French actors and European actors building up the supporting cast. And in the English version of the movie, most of them are dubbed. All of his like quote unquote friends, which aren't even his friends, they're just his coworkers, are French actors. The first time I saw this movie, I was like, oh hey, it's the guy from Z. Oh hey, it's the guy from like Zazie dans le Metro. Like, why are they speaking English? This is weird. But
that's my favorite scene in the movie, by the way.
Oh, when the friends come over for the housewarming party.
Yeah,
that's one of my least favorite scenes because it's so anxiety inducing.
I love it
because those
so
friends suck.
They're
so
awful,
much.
Truly horrible people.
They're the worst. They're so homophobic. They're so misogynistic. Yes. And he clearly doesn't even enjoy their company.
Yes, that's true.
Oh my god, there's a scene where so in that scene they are making a bit of noise because they're having a bit of a party, and the neighbors complain, and Polanski gets very anxiety ridden over this and throws everyone out. And later he's with one of those friends again, and he says, I'll show you how to deal with your neighbors, invites him over to his place for a drink, plays like John Philip Sousa marches as loud as he can, to the point that they can't even have a conversation in the room. And a neighbor of his comes down and says, excuse me, sir, would you mind turning it down a little bit? My wife, she's a little ill right now and needs to rest. And the neighbor, Polanski's friend, goes off on this man.
Roast this poor shrimpy man.
With this like very unfortunately timely tirade, which reminded me so much of Americans in the past 2 years in regards to COVID restrictions of like, I don't care if she's sick, I'm gonna do what I want to do. That like, it's disgusting to watch. It's horrifying.
I feel like there used to be a kind of like hyper masculine man who really loved Sousa marches for some reason. That man doesn't exist anymore, but I feel like there used to be like my dad and grandpa's generation, there used to be like a sort of like toxic masculine man who would like just chill out to marches.
My go-to association with John Philip Sousa music now, it used to be The Music Man, because I was in a production of The Music Man way back when. But it is now from an episode of 30 Rock in which Alec Baldwin is trying to not have sex with Julianne Moore.
Yes,
and so he says,
this.
You know what I love after a heavy meal of Indian food? John Philip Sousa marches and warm milk.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing less sexy than Sousa.
Right.
Anyway, all of the supporting cast in this movie are dubbed into English, but not only are they dubbed into English, they're dubbed with American accents.
Yeah.
But they're still talking about francs, and they're still talking about Rue de Paris, and they're still talking about living in Paris. However, it's still Melvin Douglas and Shelley Winters and all these people with these flat American accents.
Yeah.
And this very gray, brown, like bleak, gross, depressing view of
Paris.
New York is far more sexy, and Rosemary's Baby, like in 60s New York and Rosemary's Baby is
it's
hip,
so chic,
it's swinging,
and glamorous.
You want to be there.
Yeah.
Everything about this vision of Paris is disgusting. You don't want to be. There's a scene where he's taking out the garbage, and he has to walk down 3 flights just to take his couple bags of garbage out. And one of them is tearing, and he's stopped on a landing to talk to his landlord. And you can just see like orange peels crumbling out of the garbage and falling as he's trying to get down the steps. And the whole movie feels like that. The whole movie feels like there's just grime and dirt on everything. And I think it's a miracle to make Paris look like that, and to make it look that like detached from how it really does. It feels more dreamlike and surreal. And
I guess, but I feel like it could go for, it's just not enough. It's just bland. And I guess maybe that's the intention. It does feel oppressive in its blandness, but it's not like the gross like delicatessen or something like that, where Paris truly looks macabre and gross, like it's a Eraserhead. This is like somewhere in the middle between how Paris actually is, which is the most beautiful city in the world, and the Paris of delicatessen, which is like a post-apocalyptic Eraserhead hell landscape. This is just like almost feels like communist. It almost feels like Soviet because it's just like gray and dull and bland.
Okay, but conversely, I think Delicatessen's a deeply beautiful film.
It is, but it's beauty and its grotesqueness. You know, it goes further than this.
The thing that's interesting about The Tenant is that it like constricts its beauty down as much as humanly possible to only a few small moments to make you appreciate them even more.
Well, listen, watching this movie, to quote Andre Leon Talley, my eyes are starving for beauty. There's a famine of beauty.
And I think the beauty in this movie comes in two folds. One, Isabelle Adjani, who has the most 70s look in this entire movie.
Big floppy curly hair.
Big floppy curly hair, the biggest 70s glasses you've ever seen in your life.
She looks like a mannequin head because she's got blue eyeshadow on. She looks exactly like an old department store mannequin head in a good way.
So unhinged, and their entire relationship is so bizarre. They meet over the deathbed of her friend, the former tenant of his apartment that he's lying about knowing.
Yeah.
And upon leaving the hospital in which they watch her basically die.
Yep.
He tells her that you mustn't give in to your grief. So they go So they go to see Enter the Dragon, and she gives him a hand job.
Yeah.
It is
life
bizarre.
Must go on, Drusilla.
Life must go on. I mean, it's also so weird that like I've been reading the book of this. I read it a couple of months ago.
Oh, interesting.
It's incredibly accurate, 1-to-1.
Is it more linear than this? Is it as inscrutable as this movie?
It's as inscrutable.
Okay.
It was written by Roland Topor, who is most known in film circles for having made the French surreal animated film Fantastic Planet.
Oh my god, I love Fantastic Planet.
Yup. Same mind.
Oh, wow.
Yup.
Wow. And he's also, we should say, a Polish Parisian, which is probably part of why I imagine Polanski was responding to this work.
Yeah, this is a very, very interesting choice for Polanski to play this part. Because again, like, Polanski fled Poland after his like teenage years. He survived the Holocaust. His mother died in concentration camps. He then spent years trying to find his father, went to a Polish film school, made a couple very acclaimed shorts and one feature there, Knife in the Water, which is amazing. And then went to Paris, where he lived for a time and where he made Repulsion. And The Tenant really feels almost like an internalized autobiography of the time he spent initially living in Paris with no money, because everyone is xenophobic. Everyone hates that he's even possibly a foreigner. He constantly is being told, like, well, you're not French. And his constant answer very meekly is, but I have French citizenship. And they say, that doesn't cut it.
And trying to understand this movie, I did read some essays and watch some like YouTube essays about it. And one thing that came up a lot was that if you think of the building and its residents as a microcosm of Parisian society and the xenophobia that he experiences, it contextualizes the movie a lot and makes it make a lot more sense for me personally.
Agreed. And so I think there's a lot of aspects to that in the film, which are very, very much intended by Roland Topor in the novel, because that's things that he experienced in his life that Polanski also experienced. So like them meshing that on top of each other, and Polanski playing the lead role makes a lot of sense. He asked other actors to play the lead part, and they all came back and were like, why don't you just play it? This sounds like your life story. Why don't you, like, you're an act. I think he offered it to Jack Nicholson. So the Tenant has a couple different reads, one of them being the kind of xenophobic lens, which is absolutely there and is incredibly vital.
But that doesn't touch the gender stuff.
It does not touch the gender stuff, but they both kind of go into a theme of identity, which is incredibly important to this movie, more so than I think it is to Rosemary's Baby or Repulsion.
Yeah. I don't think Rosemary's Baby is interested in that.
I don't think so. I think it's more interested in body autonomy.
Yeah.
Than this. In this, he has a lot of kind of musings on body autonomy in this. There's a scene where he and Isabelle Adjani are like getting drunk before attempting to have sex. And he talks about, like, if I lose my arm, is it still my arm? Like, what amount of that self goes into that?
I do really like that scene.
But it's much more to do with the idea of identity. So when he moves into the apartment, there's a wardrobe, which has a mirror on one side of the door. And behind the mirrored door is a black floral pattern dress. And he initially picks it up to throw it out, reassesses, and puts it back in the wardrobe and lets it hang there for a little while. And there's a very strong visual metaphor in there, in that this is the one remnant of the previous tenant, aside from the giant broken pane of windows down below that she fell through. But through the mirror is that he looks through frequently in the movie, is this dress sitting there waiting, almost taunting him. Yeah. That inside of this transom is this other thing hiding. But then even behind the wardrobe is the hole in the wall with the cotton and the tooth.
Yep.
So there's this kind of like mysticism and like witchcraft almost in the tooth, but I think that's more just like, genre red herring.
Yeah, there's also a similar thing where so his apartment doesn't have a bathroom in it. The whole floor shares a bathroom, and he has a view of it from his apartment and is often looking at it. And inside the bathroom, there'll also be like a neighbor just standing there staring straight back at him,
doing nothing for hours.
And it's actually very unnerving. And so when he finally goes into there, we see that the walls are covered in Egyptian hieroglyphics. So that's sort of speaking to Simone's history as well, and also alluding to this perhaps mysticism, witchcraft angle.
Mm-hmm. And there's also framed Egyptian hieroglyphs in the apartment when he moves in. It's really interesting. And so I looked up, that's one element of the movie that I never kind of got with. And so I kind of did some research into that over the past week. And it ties into an ancient Egyptian religious belief that all things are the same. Not the kind of belief that all things have happened and will happen again, but the idea that all things are continuously happening. So the idea that, like, less of the Shining idea of like, God, Jack Torrance, was like always going to become the caretaker. Like, that was destined. That's his destiny. More that like Tchaikovsky was always Simone Schul. Simone Schul and Tchaikovsky are the same people at different points in time. And so they're mixed in with all of this xenophobia, all of this paranoia, all of this fear of these other people through his life. There's also these hints at the cafe across the street says, hey, the girl who used to live in your apartment, she used to always order a hot chocolate. Do you want me to make you a hot chocolate? And whenever he comes in, that's what's waiting for him. They don't have his brand of cigarettes, but they have hers.
Which I love, because he smokes Gauloise, which I always love from French movies. Gauloise bleu. And they're like, we just have Marlboro. Because that's what she smoked.
And to the point that, like, when he's at like a newsstand later on, he asks for Marlboro, even though the Gauloise bleus are right there.
Yeah.
And he paints one nail red to just try it out. And he goes to a wig shop, and mixed in with this paranoia is this kind of exploration of the self and of identity through gender. We never see his apartment before he moves into this apartment. We don't know where he's living. We don't know what his interior life is like before this apartment. We don't
know how he found out that this apartment might possibly. He just says through a relative, but nothing more, and it doesn't explore.
Yeah.
So
there's no other mention of his relatives at any point.
Yeah.
It's very, very curious. And then additionally, when Simone Schul is in the hospital, he lies about being a friend or even a relative to get access to her medical history and to whether or not she's alive or dead. And so there's a reading of this movie that Tarkovsky doesn't exist, that this is Simone Schul's like account of her like final days through like this warped lens. But I have always read this movie as a trans paranoia film, which is like something that doesn't exist, because every trans horror film is always like, oh my god, the killer was a dude in a dress. How fucking disgusting is that? That's an obvious sign of mental deficiency, and that they're cuckoo bananas crazy.
Yeah.
Granted, the Tenant does also have the quality of a character's mental state fraying as gender exploration is brought into that. However, the big difference, unlike Norman Bates and Psycho or other movies that I'm not going to mention because it's technically a spoiler, and I don't want to get into that on this episode. We can talk about that on that episode, because I do want to talk about those other movies. The fraying on Tarkovsky's mental well-being throughout the movie has nothing to do with gender. It is all to do with the neighbors, the like co-workers and quote-unquote friends in his life. The gender exploration is like the only source of comfort to that character. The only acts that Tarkovsky makes in the entire movie out of desire or out of like want are the gender exploration and any excuse to be near Isabelle Adjani. Everything else in the movie is out of fear or guilt.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying. But it's a movie that I find really, really beautiful in the way that it discusses, probably, not intentionally at the time. There's no way that Roman Polanski was sitting there in 1975 being like, aha, I will make the transgender
trans affirmative horror movie. I understand your reading. I get that. I was going to say, there's no way he could have done this intentionally because he is a misogynist and a repeat rapist. And so I don't think he's trans people's friends. However, I also hold space for the understanding that artists carry their unconscious with them and put that into their work, whether they want to or not. And so ultimately, an artist's intention, the importance of that stops at a certain point, and it's all about what the audience gets from it. So that's just a long way of agreeing with you. Sorry.
And the continuation of the theme of the apartment trilogy being a woman stuck alone, paranoid in an apartment, dealing with different aspects of female womanhood that are compounded by the world outside of her. Repulsion, Catherine Deneuve, is a very, very young, attractive woman who has a myriad of anxieties and hangups in regards to sexuality that is like manifests as a paranoid fear. And Rosemary's Baby, Mia Farrow, is going through the same stuff based on childbirth.
Yeah.
And then in The Tenant, it's a trans woman experiencing persecution at the possibility of exploring her identity and gender in a place that like refuses to accept any even inkling of identity from this character, which is part of the reason why I love Polanski's performance in this movie as being so like sheltered and like kind of closed off. I think it's a great, great, great performance. And like the performance that he gives at the end of the movie that you kind of hinted at with the fall, the two falls, there's a great story by Brian De Palma where he mentions that The Tenant is one of his favorite movies. And like mid cackle, he says that because he jumps out of the window, gets up, and does it again.
He wants to make sure it sticks. I don't like his performance. I think it's flat and disaffected, and I understand that might be called a choice by some. I don't know if it is. The character doesn't have any interiority to me, and I can't help but wonder what this movie would be like with a real actor, like a Donald Sutherland or a Sam Neill or I don't know, one of those great actors from the time. Yeah, that's my feeling on that.
I think he's perfect for the part. And I think that, yes, there's no interiority to the character in the beginning of the film, but I do think that it grows throughout the course of the film greatly. Heartbreakingly so. I think this is, for me, I mean, like, I find this movie very funny. At the beginning of the movie, Shelley Winters has some like iconic freaking lines. When she's
amazing.
When she shows the view to the bathroom from his window, she says, "Now that's a view worth looking at." And when she describes the previous tenant, she says, "The previous tenant, Madame Schul, threw herself out of the window," and immediately like loses her mind laughing. She's outrageously funny. There's some very, very, very funny moments in this movie that like are very darkly comic, but it's also deeply sad.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm just looking at my notes for the very first time in this episode, and because we haven't needed them. And I put down in quotes, "I think I'm pregnant," which is one of the things that he says to himself when he's in his wig and dress. And it's such a weird moment. And it's, I don't know, it's like him play acting at being a woman, I guess. But it made me like guffaw because he's like, "I think I'm pregnant." Like he says it in this like playful sort of baby voice, baby woman voice. And it's just like the most demented moment ever.
I like that moment.
I like it too. It made me laugh, but it's just like, it's like what I would say if I got drunk and put on a wig. You know what I mean? It's so stupid.
So there's a few things. I'm also now looking at my notes for the first time in the whole episode. There's a few things that I noticed in this recent view of the movie that I've never noticed before. One is maybe the scariest scene in the movie, which I tend to overlook most times, which is Simon Schul's funeral, which is like terrifying. He like slips into the back of this funeral, into the back of this church, sees Isabelle Adjani on a different row, moves to get closer to her, and then immediately the priest switches over to this fire and brimstone eulogy, including the phrase "creeps like you," and it feels entirely directed at him. And it is so fucked up, and they keep cutting to all these like bizarre angles on crucifixes and like bleeding Christ images. And when he tries to flee the church, the large entrance doors are locked and he can't get out, and he's forced to use the servants' entrance. Deeply fucked up. But then additionally, in that scene that you were mentioning that you liked, when the friends come over, quote unquote friends come over,
they're really his
housewarming party.
He has no actual friends, but
no, he does not. There's a moment that happens in the background that's deeply unsettling, and I've never noticed it before. While the friends are just talking about like women's lib, those ugly women's libber makes you almost wish you like dudes. It's the worst. In the background of one of those scenes, Tchaikovsky has like a small TV. It just comes on.
I didn't notice that either. I've never noticed
background of that. I've never noticed until this time.
That's so cool.
Thank you, Scream Factory, for a new restoration and Blu-ray release of this movie so I can notice this. It comes on and it's just blue static. And it just stays on and no one mentions it. And then like 2 or 3 scenes later, his place is robbed and the TV's gone.
Just to underline the queer stuff too, we haven't mentioned that the former tenant Simone was a lesbian. And also when, in contrast to his shitty coworkers / friends, if you can call them that, he goes and hangs out with Stella's friends who are all queer and sophisticated, and he feels alienated there too. And so he can never quite feel at home no matter where he is. But there is a for sure queer element to this.
There's a very strong queer element to this. And it's very casual. I mean, Stella is like very obviously bisexual. Simone is like explicitly lesbian.
Yeah.
And they have he asks after she's jumped out the window, and Stella says that it's not like her to do this. I don't know why she would do this. And Tchaikovsky says, well, was she having trouble with a man? And Stella immediately turns to him and says, you know, she had no interest in men.
Yeah. And I do appreciate that the movie is non-judgmental towards these elements. It doesn't judge Simone for having been a lesbian. It doesn't judge Stella's queer friends. It seems to be value neutral on whatever is happening to Tchaikovsky gender-wise. Like, that's not the problem in the movie, I guess, is what I should.
Yeah, the problem is the like weirdly fucked up capitalistic society around him. I mean, like, the way money is used in this movie, he has to like bribe Shelley Winters just to show him the apartment.
Yeah.
He's got to pay an inordinate sum of money just to get the deposit on this place, which is 5,000 francs.
Yeah. Crazy.
And then on top of that, okay, so the apartment is 600 francs a month. I did the math on that to find out what 600 francs was to US dollars in 76, and then what that buying power is in 2022. It was about 700 US dollars in 76, which is like over $3,000 today.
Do you know,
that 2-room apartment with no bathroom in Paris is $3,000. And that's like a steal.
My first apartment was a studio in Seattle in the year 2000, and it was $600 a month, which is like the same price that he's paying. And I did have a bathroom. It was a studio, but I had a bathroom. And it's not Paris, it's Seattle. And no shade to Seattle. I love that city, but it's no Paris. Paris is still like this. I mean, people will make deals with the elderly so that they can get their apartment when they die. I mean, it's way worse than New York is, even in terms of finding an apartment. It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah. There's a couple of really touching scenes in this movie that I think are both really fucked up, but really beautiful, in which a man shows up at his door looking for Simone Schul to like finally confess his love to her.
Yeah.
Only to then be informed that, dude, she killed herself. Also, she was gay and had no interest in you. And it's like really fucked up. And then Polanski, like Tchaikovsky, out of the kindness of his heart. I don't want to say Polanski out of the kindness of his heart for some reason.
Yeah.
Takes him out to drink his sorrows down. Alcohol is a big theme in this movie. Like a really, really big crutch and theme in this movie.
Yes.
And when this man is good and wasted and, you know, less blubbery, Tchaikovsky walks him down to the metro, and they kind of stop and share a moment on the steps of the metro, which is intensely homoerotic.
Yeah.
And again, leans back into the this man is in love with Simone Schul and now is immediately making eyes at Polanski. Got it. And then there's also a scene where a very beleaguered mother and her handicapped daughter come to Polanski to tell him that they're being threatened with being thrown out of the apartment building because the daughter is handicapped and makes loud noise when she walks in the apartment.
She's got a leg brace.
Yeah. And then not long later, Joe Van Fleet shows up at his door asking him to sign a petition to have this noisy neighbor and their incredibly tyrant son thrown out. And he's like, don't you mean daughter? I'm pretty sure that woman has a daughter. And she's like, I wouldn't know the difference. And she then makes a note that how dare he not sign this petition? How dare he not join in to have this woman thrown out? Which, you know, a Polish person in France being persecuted for their otherness and for not standing up with the group to persecute another person for their otherness. Is pretty on the frickin' nose there.
It's the moment in the movie where I found him the most likable, and to be honest, I mean, there's nothing I hate more in the world than a busybody. I just like cannot take it, or a sanctimony or anything like that. Yeah, we've been talking for an hour. Maybe we should play Have They Seen It? I have an interesting one, I think. This person is connected to Rosemary's Baby and to sexual predators. Do you think Ronan Farrow has seen this?
I think Ronan Farrow has definitely seen The Tenant.
What do you think he feels about it?
I think Ronan Farrow is a fan of The Tenant.
You think?
I think
even
so.
though he, like he famously exposed Harvey Weinstein and broke that story, and yeah.
But also, like, remember, Mia is still friends with Roman Polanski.
Is she?
She is.
Oh, that's shocking.
Right?
That's shocking.
I think that Mia Farrow is probably a big fan of The Tenant, and that when Ronan was probably like a teen, she was like, "Let's watch The Tenant," and Ronan was like into it.
I don't know if she would like this movie. I think that she likes Rosemary's Baby and is proud of it, but I don't know if she ever watches any horror movies whatsoever.
I don't know if you follow Ronan Farrow on Twitter, on Instagram.
I don't.
So recently, I saw this because a friend of mine sent me this. Ronan Farrow showed text messages with his mother, Mia Farrow, in his Instagram story of Mia Farrow texting him at like weird hours of the night, like 1 to 3 a.m., just with photos of famous actresses showing a lot of cleavage. Being like, look at her. Oh my God. And you know what? For that energy, I feel like she'd get down with The Tenant.
I love her. I mean, there's a famous story. We'll do Rosemary's Baby someday, I'm sure. But there's a famous story where she was dating Frank Sinatra when she was making that. And he wanted her to drop out of the movie. And the producer, Bob Evans, who's a legend, said to her, "Fuck Sinatra. You go get yourself an Oscar." And she did. She sure as shit did.
I love...
She dumped Frank Sinatra, did Rosemary's Baby, and got herself an Oscar. That's iconic.
I love that story. I love that iconography, but I also so deeply love referring to Robert Evans as Bob Evans because I'm from Indiana and there is a chain of like home fried food called Bob Evans. And I love to think of overly suntanned, big sunglasses, mountain of cocaine. Robert Evans, this is my joint. Get me a country fried steak.
Get yourself an Oscar. You go get yourself a chicken fried steak.
You go get yourself some gravy, girl. I don't care what he says. He and Dino can smoke it.
Hit me with one.
Speaking of connections, based on generational connections to people in this movie, what do you think that Shelley Winters' goddaughter, Laura Dern, if she's seen The Tenant?
Ooh, I love Laura Dern, star of one of my favorite movies, Ladies and Gentlemen, The Fabulous Stains.
The bass player for The Fabulous Stains, Laura Dern, and nothing else.
Nothing. It's crazy that she never did any other movies. I feel like if she has seen this, she would like it, but I don't know that she has. She's a really smart, sophisticated person, and so yeah, I think that she would like this. Or she might be like me. She might be a Rosemary's Baby stan and not a Tenant stan. I don't know.
I do like that there are dividing lines. Like, this is Sharks and the Jets. For queer horror fans. You're either on the Tenant side or the Rosemary side.
Wait, would you say that you are on the Tenant side and not Rosemary's Baby side?
Yeah, I'm on the Tenant side.
You don't like Rosemary's Baby?
No, I love Rosemary's Baby. I prefer the Tenant.
Okay. I was about to reach through the screen and grab you by the collar and bully you if you said you didn't like Rosemary's Baby.
I do really, 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 really like Rosemary's Baby. However, I prefer Repulsion and I prefer The Tenant.
Okay.
They're all great films. I just personally get more out of Repulsion and The Tenant because I find those more relatable, more interesting, and more funny. Fucking funny. Oh my God. And more influential to the things that I write and to the kind of art that I want to make. Every time I write a screenplay, I like my reference points always have Repulsion and The Tenant in there somehow. And I am like, why? Why do I keep doing this? I need to stop doing this, but they always keep bleeding back in. Meanwhile, Rosemary's Baby, I have a relationship with it and I love that movie. And we will get into my relationship with that at another day when we talk about the movie because it's weird. But I do love that movie. And again, he loves a busybody American woman from old Hollywood.
He sure does.
Oh my God. Speaking, oh, sorry. So,
no, please.
Laura Dern, I think, absolutely would love The Tenant. She has impeccable taste. Who else are you speculating on at this moment?
What do you think David Lynch thinks of The Tenant?
Okay, I'm going to go out on a ballpark here and say that David Lynch has never seen The Tenant. Granted, I'm sure Laura Dern loves it.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that Mark Frost loves it. David Lynch has said many, many times that he did not watch a new film after leaving AFI.
Oh my God, has he really? I've never read
David
that.
Lynch doesn't like watching movies.
I love him so much.
So, like, there's interviews with, I mean, obviously, he is, like, the king of, like, surreal horror and stuff like that. And so, in a lot of interviews, people are like, you must love Buñuel. I'm like, you, what's your favorite Buñuel film? And he's like, I've never seen him. People keep telling me to watch his movies, and like maybe I've seen his short. I don't think I've seen any of his movies, and I don't watch movies anymore.
Yeah.
So I think he hasn't seen The Tenant, but I think if he has, I think he digs it.
Okay.
But I highly doubt it. I think the only movies David Lynch has ever seen are Fellini films and like old Hollywood movies, like The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, his movie
like,
watching like stopped.
Voyager.
It stopped somewhere like in the 70s probably, where like that's his cutoff point. Sort of like how like Amish people can't use technology after a certain date. He's like that with watching movies.
Which is why his movies are so great, because they just feel unstuck from time.
Yeah.
Like,
and unconcerned with any influences whatsoever besides his weird meditation hallucinations.
Yeah, which is why they're all so great, and why Twin Peaks is so relatable, because Mark Frost watches other things.
Yeah.
So my question for you is on the gender question of The Tenant, because I know a lot of trans women who are into genre film and into cult films, and they love The Tenant. I wonder if trans punk icon Jane County has seen The Tenant.
Oh,
and what she thinks of it.
For sure. Jane County is so rad. Yes, 100%. I think she's seen it. I think she likes it. See, now I'm like sort of, you've put me in this position where I'm sort of sticking up for this movie that I don't like. And I'm having to pretend like I think the movie is cool and queer. Like you've done that. You've cornered me in this way. And it's not really fair, because I still don't think the movie is good. But now I'm having to like position myself to say like, oh, Jane County is cool, so she likes this cool movie. I've been like hoodwinked by you in this way. Sure, Jane County's seen The Tenant. Jane County loves The Tenant. That's all I have to say about that.
I really hope she's seen it, and I really hope she enjoys it, because I adore her so much.
Love her. Love Max's Kansas City. Love it.
Love Jubilee. Oh my God. The creative director that I work with is friends with Jane, and so maybe I'll ask him to ask her whether she's seen The Tenant, and we can get some response on this.
We'll get a response.
Yeah, maybe. Jane, if you're listening, write us.
Anyway, that's about all the time we have this week. If you like this show, please rate it on iTunes and all that good stuff, but only if you're going to give it 5 stars. We don't have time for 4 stars or 3 stars.
Or 2 stars.
Or 2 stars. Get the fuck out of here. Drusilla, where can people follow you?
You can follow me at Hyde Sister on Twitter and Instagram, and look me up on my website, sisterhydedesign.com. Check out some of the art I've made and I'm continuing to make. And Josh, where would you be on the interwebs these days?
Joshua Conkle on Twitter and Instagram and Letterboxd, where I gave this movie 2 stars.
You villain.
Drusilla, what are we watching next week?
Next week, we are going into what we have just referred to as David Lynch's heyday, aka 40s Hollywood cinema, with the absolute queer horror treat from RKO and Val Lewton, The Seventh Victim.
Ooh la la, très bien. All right, thank you so much. See you next week. Bye-bye.